Hey guys, welcome back to the Midnight Movie. Before we get started, I would like to humbly request if you enjoyed this or any of the videos on my channel, if you would hit like, subscribe, and share. Again, any of those videos that you've enjoyed, I'd surely appreciate it. As you know, it's an ongoing battle with the algorithm, and we are trying to build the channel and build a community of people who really love film. So if you can help me out with that, we would appreciate it. So, your midnight movie for this week is a film that has lived in legend in my mind and certainly as a legend of cinema for a very long time. Hadn't seen this movie since I was, as in, sat down, watched it from beginning to end without a break, probably since I was a teenager. I remember picking this movie up as a kid at Blockbuster and really just being blown away by it. I remember this movie being played on cable, even on like local access TV late at night in Chicago. Highlander, 1986. This movie it's famous, it's infamous, it has an incredible concept. It is absolutely beautiful. The cinematography, the set pieces, it's a really powerful, majestic film. And it will probably be my first review that I have a critique for. I don't really like to do film criticism per se. As someone who is only a burgeoning filmmaker myself, I understand now what it really takes to make a film. And it takes a lot. And I can't imagine how it must feel when a project does not come to fruition the way you hope it does. And so I think I'm a bit more empathetic and compassionate when I watch something that I feel is good but maybe doesn't hit the mark. Uh, and I feel like I remember Highlander from 1986 being a better film as a youth than my recent rewatch. Uh, it's entirely possible. Maybe the mood I was in, or sort of where I was at, may have colored my enjoyment of the film. I don't think that was the case, but obviously it won't just be all critique. But there were some things that didn't connect for me in this most recent viewing after many, many, many years that I didn't notice as a youngin. Conceptually, awesome. There are so many incredibly great set pieces. Russell Mulcahy, who is the director of the film, I think he understood the assignment. It's, I think, a great script for the most part. I think that there were maybe some missteps directorially, but I think um, the biggest thing I would address in this film probably could have been solved with the editing. Obviously, for those of you that are familiar with the movie, it's about a man named Connor MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod, who we meet initially at a wrestling match in 1980s New York City. And he's just sitting there completely quiet, silent, motionless, as everyone's cheering on the match. And you realize, okay, this guy's he's he's keyed in on something else. Well, he gets a feeling. He's sort of just focused straight ahead. He leaves the auditorium and goes to the parking lot where he meets a dude who pulls out a massive broadsword and starts swinging it at him. Well, Connor has his own. He takes out his sword, and a battle ensues. Over the course of the movie, we are then jettisoned into a flashback where we meet Connor MacLeod in the Middle Ages, medieval Scotland, where due to an accident, he realizes he can't die. He is then visited by Ramirez, played by the late, great Sean Connery, who himself is also an immortal and is basically there to kind of be his Morpheus, be his guide, and explain to him, Connor, you're an immortal and you cannot die. And here's the deal. Going forward, you cannot love, and you must do battle with immortals that come across your path, and you must do so until your head comes away from your neck. And again, a really cool, sort of mythical, sort of fairy tale like story with, again, incredible costumes, incredible set design. I do believe they shot in Scotland. They shot in New York. There were a lot of really great locations for this film. Uh, the landscapes were beautiful. I I think the female lead probably did the best she could, and this is something before I criticize her, I think most people who have never either acted in a film or directed a film and been part of a film, sometimes it's not the actor's fault. Sometimes the actor is giving the director what they're asking for, and sometimes a director is so busy juggling so many things, which most directors do, that sometimes things fall by the wayside. So, not to overly criticize the female lead of Highlander, uh, I didn't really feel a whole lot of connection between her and Connor. I think Christopher Lambert was great. I do think it's an interesting choice to have cast a Frenchman to play a Scotsman, and then cast Sean Connery, a Scotsman, to play a Spaniard as Ramirez. But it's neither here nor there. These are iconic roles now, iconic characters, and it kind of works. But with the female lead, I there were moments I believed her as an investigator, and there were moments where just the lines didn't land. And again, that's not necessarily her fault. It boils down to what the director and what the editor decided that he wanted to keep. So you could give someone 5 takes, and maybe the first and the fifth were awesome. But if the editor and director pick 3 and 4, you don't have control over that as an actor. So I'm much more forgiving of actors that don't seem to hit the mark when I'm watching films these days. But we jump from medieval Scotland. We flash forward to back to New York City, and probably the most fun character in the film we actually meet in medieval England, a Goth warrior played by Clancy Brown. A real bad dude, just a murderous, pillaging bastard, really, who manages to survive from medieval times all the way up to, again, contemporary 1980s New York. And he goes from a goth wearing a skull helmet, swinging a broadsword with lots of armor and dark fur, to basically a metalhead, a guy who listens to a lot of heavy metal, lives sort of like on the underground, the underbelly of society. And it really works. His deep, gravelly voice, his deep, almost demonic laugh really works for the character. I feel he is maybe the most even thread through the entire movie. And that's not to say that, Christopher Lambert and Sean Connery's performances are wanting. I think it really boils down to a matter of how it was edited. There are, I watch scenes and I rewatch scenes. I'm like, man, if you would have just cut that 2 to 5 seconds earlier. There's a lot of screaming by women in this movie, which seems really out of place, even in an 80s film. Maybe you'd see that in a 1930s or 40s or even 1950s film where there's a fight or a battle where you have women screaming over and over, which seems odd. It would seem to me that if you see a battle and danger, instead of sitting there and screaming, you'd probably run away. So that's an issue for sound and how they decided to build those scenes. But it really stuck out for me this time. And maybe this won't stick out for you. Maybe this is just me, with too much of a student of filmmaking lens on looking at that. But I'm just like, why is she screaming like that? I'd be trying to run for cover. I wouldn't be just standing there. There's a few scenes where either Christopher Lambert or Clancy Brown seem to be yelling a bit too much during a sword battle. If you're swinging around, I don't know, an 80-pound broadsword, or trying to dodge, sparks and metal and, a giant dude trying to take your head off, I don't know that you'd have a whole lot of energy to yell at the top of your lungs while you're doing that. Again, I hope this isn't coming off like I'm being overly critical. These were just things that I noticed in this rewatch of Highlander that, I'm like, wow, that's so unnecessary. there's part of me, because I do love this film dearly. I wouldn't even be talking about it if I didn't. It's something that it's deep in the nucleus of my childhood, of my teen years. It's a cult classic. I love its ambition. I love the shots of when when an immortal takes off another immortal's head, that immortal absorbs all of the life experience and skill and experience of that dead immortal. And those scenes are awesome because both Christopher Lambert and Clancy Brown get they get that opportunity of the quickening. I think that's what that's called, where they absorb all of that knowledge and experience. And those shots are really cool. They absolutely had a budget for these things, and they really allocated their funds really well. Every bit of this movie looks incredible. I love the cinematography. Again, the story is there. Maybe a few lines I might have changed, but I feel like if this movie does have weaknesses, uh, it's on maybe the editing. I feel like I could probably tuck quite a bit. Some strategic cuts here and there, maybe just a few seconds, uh, that I think would improve how a moment lands. And this is not, a contemporary movie guy saying it moves too slow. I love a slow burn. I worship Andrei Tarkovsky, who is often accused of having slow movies, but that's people who don't understand film outside of contemporary Hollywood stuff. So it's not a matter that it's too slow. I feel like some of the moments don't hit because they go on just a tad too long. And if you know how a scene is working, and it's like, okay, cut, 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 and there were several moments of that for me. Yeah, it's just one of those movies that it's fun. Again, I'm more forgiving of, say, an Italian exploitation film than I am a straight Hollywood production like Highlander is, because I feel like these are things that should have been caught either by the director sitting with the editor in the editing bay, or the producer, or all three of them. As someone who has sat through the editing process of one of his own films, it it's a combination of, you have to trust your editor, make sure you're on the same page with your editor. If that's the case, you don't have a whole lot to worry about. But certain things that it's like, okay, can we let this one breathe a little bit more, or can we cut this and that? And being open to getting notes from your editor, from your producer, and be open to those things, and try different stuff. Ultimately, trust your gut, go with your gut, but also hire people that you trust. And so I feel like if there is a fault in Highlander, it might be in the editing. It certainly is not in how it looks. I love the fact that it has a gritty feel. Clearly, it's 1986. It's shot on film. It really gives 80s New York powerful grit. A powerful grit that I rarely see in films anymore, and it's why I'm so goddamn bored with our contemporary film. Everything is too clean, everything is too pretty. I'm tired of going to movie theaters and seeing what are almost feel like video games at this point. None of that impresses me. I mean, it impresses me from a technological standpoint. The engineering, again, the technology is great, but something is lost in the, if you're telling me a story that should have grit, you're telling me something, a crime story, you're telling me a story about a man who is sort of in an existential funk, like Connor McLeod, a man who has fought across time, that gritty, almost soot, maybe quasi fog in the air, maybe seeing an occasional negative scratch. It adds something to a movie like Highlander. And so that's why I will definitely return to this movie. Probably watch it again next month to make sure that I'm not being overly harsh on it. But no, it's still a fun movie. I think Highlander, the first movie, I think, is probably the best. They did several of them, and I don't know if the others really were as pure as the first movie. The second one really divides people because it takes the myth of it in a very different direction, and then 3 and 4 kind of get back to the original premise that the first movie establishes. I do remember enjoying the TV series. I watched the pilot of the Highlander series after I watched the film, and it's fun. Uh, Maybe a little too dialogue-y for scenes where a guy pulls a sword. Again, you don't stick around and explain yourself. You run because the guy has a sword. Uh, that said, this is a really beloved franchise. I love it. I'm probably going to finish the 5 seasons of Highlander. Do an episode a night before bed. I do like that cast. Connor McLeod does make Christopher Lambert makes an appearance in the first episode, and he's basically handing off the baton to Duncan McLeod. And yeah, just a fun series, one of those syndicated series from the early 90s that were really fun. Like it was Highlander, Renegade, maybe a few others in those days. Just really ambitious, fun, quasi-independent TV that got syndicated all over. But yeah, I would give it for Highlander out of 4 stars. I'd probably give it 3 because again, the ambition of the script, a great concept, incredible set pieces, the set design, costumes, the cinematography, the staging, the cast is great. I just think that maybe there was a little bit of a ball drop with the director and editor, and man, I'd love to just go in there and just make some cuts. But anyways, it's not my film. But yeah, let me know what you think. Am I being too harsh on Highlander 1986, or am I dead right? Let me know in the comments below. And again, if you've enjoyed this video or any video on the channel, please hit like, please subscribe, and share. And I'll see you in the next one.